Today we're making a plant-based green bean casserole. To make this green bean casserole, you're going to need
1 pound of green beans, 2 cups of dried mushrooms, 3 cups of boiling water, 1 cup of cashews, black pepper to taste, an onion, 4 cloves of garlic, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 teaspoon of thyme, and optional fried onions to taste. This is an easy yet complex recipe, and the main reason being there's a lot of stuff going on, but none of it is super difficult, just some of it takes time. One of the things that takes time is
the mushrooms. We want to rehydrate them, but let me back up a little bit. We are basically making the beans, we're making some fillings to go into the beans, and then we're making a sauce to go on the beans, and then a topping. So there's 4 pieces. The topping's the easy one. It's just, the fried onions if you want to. The rest, let me go over that. So the first step is we need some flavor added to the gravy. So that's where mushrooms come in. Now, since you use mushrooms in green bean casserole already, I like to use dried mushrooms and rehydrate them using roughly 3 cups of water or so, something like that.
Now we found a dry mushroom mix that is actually a combination of different mushrooms. I will make sure to link that in the description below, along with our ingredients list, because
you can get this at Costco, and I think we actually found it on Amazon too. Yeah. So really common, really cheap too. I mean, it lasts a while and it's pretty inexpensive. The level of smell and aroma that's coming just from this is incredible. But wait till you see what we're actually gonna do with the liquid. Yeah.
All right, so this is step 1 that takes a lot of time, and basically they just need to rehydrate. So that's why you have your boiling water, you have your mushrooms, just let them sit.
Because our mushrooms won't stay under the water, I'm just gonna put a little bowl in there to weigh it down. Set them aside. Half an hour at least. I have let this go like 3-4 hours and it's totally fine.
The next thing that takes a lot of time is the onion, and that's because we actually want to caramelize it. And to caramelize an onion, it's really simple. You just slice it to the desired slices, length, size that you want, and then you put them in a pan with a little bit of
butter,
oil, whatever.
Vegan butter, always vegan butter. We don't use regular butter, obviously.
And you just,
someone always asks me that whenever we say butter. It's a plant-based channel. Of course it's vegan butter.
And you just let them sit, because you don't want to cook them on a high heat because they'll burn and dry out.
Right. The idea is you want the liquid to come out, and then have them the sugar start to actually caramelize.
And that's why it's called caramelization.
Caramelization, yeah. So for this, I'm not going to be using, get off my nut. I'm not going to be using like the long thin strips. I actually want it to be cubed, more like what I would do for like diced, more like what I would do in a sauce. So, because that way they kind of disappear into it and you don't really notice them as much. So just, like 1/2 inch or so square pieces, if you will. Okay, so you have your pan on medium-low heat. Grab a nice scoop, like a tablespoon or so of vegan butter, get it in there, get it started melting. Then bring on the onions, get them into the pan. Tip, use the back of the knife when you want to scrape. That way, you don't hurt the blade. Grab a spoon, mix them around a little bit, make sure the butter gets everywhere and coats everybody. And then walk away for a while. Come back every 5-10 minutes or so, give them a stir. While your mushrooms are mushrooming and your onions are onioning, you might want to get your green beans started. And by that, I mean, break them down into more or less bite-sized type pieces, get those nasty stems off, that sort of thing. I mean, some of these are a little bit big still, but that's okay. Good big bite of beans is all good. I like to use a bamboo steamer to get them softened up, and did you really just do that?
I really just did that.
Okay.
That was me eating the large green beans.
Okay. You can boil them if you really want to. I think that leaches out a lot of the nutrients and the good stuff from the beans, so I like to steam them. So I'm just going to use my bamboo steamer. These have been washed, and these have been stemmed, and these have been by, snapped by Derica. She always does the beans in this house. That's why they call her the bean person.
That's why it keeps me around.
Yep.
That and comic effect.
And I put these onto a pot of boiling water, let that go for about 5 to 7 minutes. That's it. Maybe test one, make sure it's slightly al dente still. You want it to be a little bit firm because they are going to be recooked later.
That's another thing that I want to point out. We have tried using this recipe using frozen, and they tend to overcook really easily.
It got mushy
when we bake them.
was okay.
We prefer the fresh.
Yeah, go with fresh. Trust, just do the fresh. And now comes the flavor that's gonna be added to the casserole.
What we're basically doing is we're replicating cream of mushroom soup.
Yes.
But of course it's gonna be vegan, and of course it's gonna taste infinitely better than anything you can find in a can.
Mm-hmm. 1 cup of cashews into your blender of choice.
One's hiding.
If you are not using a high-speed blender, you wanna soak those overnight or put them in boiling water for about 10 minutes. Should work just fine. Then we have our cloves of garlic. Those are gonna go right in there. To this, I'm also going to add the soy sauce, all of it. You can never have too much thyme. Actually, you can, because thyme would overpower this. I just want to put a little bit in there. Now, the secret to this is we're making a cashew cream sauce, right? Normally, you would use a broth or a water. Well, today we're going to use mushroom broth. That's why I did this. Get extra mushroomy flavor in there. The trick is knowing how much to use, and it always varies a little bit. We're using 1 cup of cashew, so I want to use at least 1 cup of this liquid, and I'm just going to start.
Do you want to measure it or no?
No, but I will now that you mention it, because I'll look stupid if I don't.
You can still use a strainer.
It's getting more complicated by the minute.
I'm sorry.
That was not a cup, but this thing's gonna irritate me, so I'm gonna do it this way.
He's gonna eyeball it.
If you have a little too much, it's okay. It will thicken up as you cook. So you just wanna have enough. And we might have just a tiny bit extra. I like to have a little extra when we blend it. That way, if it's too thick, you can always add a little bit more. And now we blend. Okay, our beans took 9 minutes. Not 9 minutes and 1 second, 9 minutes exactly. And they are just tender enough. So what I wanna do is get them out of the bamboo. Notice the fireproof gloves. Trust me, stuff's hot. You see all the steam, right?
Steam can be shockingly dangerous. It'll take the skin right off.
It'll hurt you. All right, so I'm just gonna get this out of the way. I'll be right back. Our onions are looking lovely and caramelized.
Oh, they smell so good.
Yep, and I'm just gonna dump them right in with the last remnants of butter that they had and everything. So now we have all these mushrooms and that broth. I don't need all that broth because our gravy is perfect.
Do you want to put the gravy in there first before the mushrooms to see if you need some of that broth, or?
That is not a bad idea. We can do that. So I'm gonna dump this in. And now I use like half first. Stop dripping. And then I start mixing it around to see where we're at. But without the mushrooms in here, it's hard to gauge.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I'm gonna go strain the mushrooms. I'll be right back. On the topic of the mushrooms, some of these are relatively large, and if that bothers you, you can always cut them up. I like the big bites in this, so I'm just gonna dump them right in. We probably should call this a mushroom green bean casserole because it's more about the mushroom than it is the green beans.
Yes. But we love mushrooms, so
Yeah.
any excuse to put more mushrooms in something is a good excuse for us.
And I just wanna mix this through real good. It seems like I may have about the right sauce to bean ratio here. The mushrooms will soak some up, even though they've soaked up quite a bit, they will still soak up some, and it will thicken as it cooks. So I am gonna dump in just a little bit more, just because, you know, I feel like it needs it. Taste your food as you go. That tastes amazing. It's mushroomy, it's creamy. Oh, it's so good. That's a soup right there. You can just eat that as...
If you have copious amounts left, which we do not have copious amounts, unfortunately, but that's because we were trying to make the portions for
There's enough for her to have a bowl of soup.
You can just eat it straight up like a bowl of soup. Yep. You can...
Dip crackers in it.
Dip crackers, you can put it on crepes. It's fantastic.
All right.
And I have claimed it, so it's mine now.
Yep. Black pepper. To taste, we like black pepper. Somebody likes it a lot. Okay. I'm gonna mix that through. A lot of mixing.
So we got this out because this is our favorite spatula for using with our Vitamix blender. It gets into those nooks and crannies, and we find it to be a lot easier to deal with than the specialized tool that Vitamix makes.
Yeah.
This is made by KitchenAid. I believe I can find it on Amazon. If I can, I will link it in the description below, because if you have a Vitamix blender, you're gonna want one of these.
We found it at Publix though, didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That is probably my only complaint with the Vitamix blender is they're hard to get all the stuff out of. So now I just want to dump this out into a casserole dish.
So this casserole is an 8 by 11. It's the smallest casserole in our
Line up.
set.
Can we try to squeegee some of that out?
You want me to use the spatula?
Yeah, use the spatula.
All right.
Do you want a different spatula?
This is the good stuff.
Yeah, you want to get all the sauce you can without killing yourself holding up a really large glass bowl.
All right.
I think we're good.
Of course, for this particular application, a normal spatula would have worked better, but this is the one we had out.
And then once it's all in there, kind of smooth it around and pat it down. You want to kind of make sure there's not a lot of holes around it. If you want to pour a little bit more of the sauce over at this point, you totally can. I think I'm going to, just to fill in some of the gaps. Because like I said, this will soak up some and it will thicken in the oven. So a little bit extra never hurt.
We also have a mushroom distribution issue. We have big chunks of mushrooms on one end and not any on...
They're all over. What are you talking about?
We got a whole conglomerate of big chunks over there.
It's homemade food.
He's trying to hog all the mushrooms. I know
yeah.
what's happening. I see his devious plan.
I don't make this dish for me.
He makes it for me. We'll be totally honest.
I love green beans and I love mushrooms. For some reason, I'm not a huge fan of green bean casserole. It's okay. It's just not my favorite thing. And if you really want to, you can put the fried onion things on there. Now, I found these at the Asian market, and I think these are far superior to the canned weird things that you get normally. I mean, just smell that. They smell like, they smell fresher. They don't smell like they've sat for 5 years, even though these are probably sat for 20 years.
You also want to check the ingredients, because sometimes they'll sneak something in there that you don't necessarily want to eat. So take a peek at the ingredients before you purchase them.
These are basically fried and salted. So that's why there's no salt in this dish. Okay, well, there's salt in the dish, but I didn't add any salt to the dish. And I'm just putting some of these on top, as much as you like. I mean, you don't have to. It's a traditional type of thing. You know, everybody does it, but, you know, we don't always. Actually, we usually don't.
All right, so you should be having your oven preheating to...
350 degrees. But,
and that's Fahrenheit.
Yeah, before we put this in there, though, I got to take a couple pictures. Okay, so after 45 minutes, this is what we have. It's very hot.
I'm so excited, I'm gonna burn my face.
But everything gets nice and bubbly and caramely. The crispy onion bits get a little bit brown. If you notice that it's starting to brown too much, you can pull it out. It doesn't need to cook a lot more.
Yeah, everything is already cooked.
Yeah,
so
half an hour to 45 minutes is pretty typical.
It's mostly just to get a nice browning and to let all those flavors meld.
Get everybody to play well together.
That's right, play nice. All right, I'm braving it because
it goes right to the middle,
smells
too.
So good.
All right, I'm gonna get some mushroom on mine.
It is so good and so flavorful and so creamy that you would swear that certainly there was some sort of additional ingredient in here, but there wasn't.
White stuff that shall not be named.
We showed you everything that we put in there.
This came out better than last time. I like this. I think the caramelized onions really up the flavor a lot. We didn't put them in the last time I made this.
Yeah.
I think it really
gives
changed
that little bit of sweetness to it.
A little more smokiness and depth
That
coming through.
missing here.
Yeah, wow, just amazing. For family get-togethers that require a green bean casserole, go ahead, make this. It's just amazing. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Dolcino d'amore, delle belle turbando e riposo, narcisette